Hi, this is Audrey Blair, and you're listening to the Changes Art Podcast, episode 13. Hello, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are doing well. We are now in July, so this year, at least for me, is flying right on by. I will have another episode. I think I'm going to record another episode with the update for Q2. Haven't done it yet because I haven't actually looked at everything and done my evaluation yet, but I have that scheduled for next weekend. But post 4th of July, hopefully you were able to get maybe a little bit of time off, enjoy some good food, maybe some friends, family, enjoy the weekend a bit. I was fortunate. I had the opportunity, my kids and I went down to Georgia near Atlanta because we had a family reunion. And it was so great to see so many people. It had been a while since we have gotten together. Traditionally, my family does one every 2 years, and a different city or a different part of the family will host, but we haven't had one since 2018 because, of course, 2020 things were shut down. And then in 2022, it was still kind of iffy. People weren't quite still getting together just yet. So this is the first one that we've really had since 2018. And yeah, a lot can happen and a lot has happened since then. But you see people you haven't seen in a while. Some you remember, some you don't. We're all kind of looking around like, I know you, and some distant cousins, and the family gets bigger and the kids get bigger. My kids and I went. My husband actually got sick. He was planning to come, but he got sick right before we were going, so he stayed back. But it was just really good for my soul. I don't live near that part of the family, so I don't get to see them that much at all, unless I'm going to Ohio and I have some family in Florida, and so, but I don't get to Ohio very much. So it was just fantastic to see that. And then we have a huge contingency in Georgia, various areas. We had an opportunity to go out to the country outside of LaGrange, Georgia. My goodness, it looks so different than when I was a kid and when we used to go there. But to go back, the family has some land back there, and to take my kids and see, gosh, this is where a lot of your roots are. And I just think that that's something important. It was certainly important for me. It was just really good for my soul. I can feel isolated out here sometimes because, like I said, um, I'm not near family that much, and I don't have um, the number of siblings that a lot of my cousins have to kind of keep up with all the things that are going on. But it was a blast. And I just wanted to pop in, one, because it's been a minute, and I was thinking back last week. I was going to record this, but I some things came up, and that's kind of what's been happening with me lately. Is I've been in a little bit of a funk, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that and maybe what causes it. And I think I've diagnosed what was causing mine, and then what are just some fundamental things that you can do when you find yourself in a funk. And for me, what I am describing as being in a funk is I feel like I'm looking at some of the things that I want to be getting done or want to be doing, and I find that I'm just not doing them. And I don't know if any of you can relate, but sometimes you have some things that you want to do. Maybe you have a checklist of things, some short term, but even more for some long term goals. And in order to accomplish the long term goals, you have to get things moving in the short term in order to get there. And I was getting a bit overwhelmed because I felt like my list was piling up, but I wasn't moving at the pace that I needed to move at in order to get it done. So I fell into just this. a bit of perfectionism where which then caused a lot of overwhelm, which then caused a lot of analysis by paralysis, which then meant I wasn't getting anything done. So I needed to devise a plan in order to get things moving again. And on top of that, it was a bit busy. I was on vacation. I had a birthday. I had some work that it took me that I was traveling for work a bit as well. And so going away and coming back a couple different times and then realizing there's some things that I hadn't put in place before I left in order to keep things moving. I think that's what triggered it when I came back and I thought, "Oh no, I needed to have certain things done that I didn't get done." And so I think I proceeded to just get down on myself a bit and then kind of threw my hands up, which is really not the way to go. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. I'm not sure, but um I I think that this is something that I know for me, I've got to learn how to get through more quickly and deal with it so I can keep things moving. So let's take a step back and talk a little bit about what are some of the things that can cause you to get into a funk? Well, definitely stress when there's a lot of stress going on. If you aren't eating well, taking care of your body and putting nutrients in your body that's helping you, that can physically, you can start not feeling well, which then affects your brain and affects how you see yourself. Maybe being in isolation, I working having your own business and working alone can be quite isolating sometimes. But even if you're not in your own business and if you're not necessarily working alone, sometimes you can still feel isolated because you might feel like, well, I'm going through something that no one else gets or no one else understands. Particularly with leaders that I work with, they have their team that they're managing, they have their upstream that are working with them in a way, but sometimes that spot can be a little bit lonely. Not sleeping well, that can also affect things and get the day started off kind of wacky. And like I said, probably for me, the biggest culprit was um, just not moving at the pace and not getting things done. And for me, if I have a couple days where there are certain things off my list that I'd like to check off, I know that feeling of failing can creep in. And when I'm not seeing results, then I can point back to, oh, you are doing something wrong or something's not working. And so that is a lot of that is just a part of the mindset and the story that ultimately I am telling myself when those things are happening. So then what's my plan? What am I doing to get out of this? Well, as I said, not getting things done. So what's causing mine? When I thought it through, I broke it down to a couple different things. One, not enough action, especially when I get into this perfectionist mode. I talk a lot about mindset. You know this. My clients certainly know this. We spend a lot of time on that, especially with my clients where all they want to do is keep it moving and just get into action. Sometimes I have to slow them down and think about what's going on. What's the story that you're telling yourself? What's going on in your brain that's leading you to some of the things that you're doing? And what's the energy that you're showing up with? I think for me, I'm a little bit on the other side of that. When I get coached, my coaching is more about, okay, you've got the mindset, you're working through that, but you need to get into action. And so I have to get out of this mode of focusing so much on the details that I can't let what's the saying? Done is better than perfect. I have to get myself in that mode. And so it's a challenge when I'm in this all or nothing thinking, because then my time gets too wrapped. I mean, my mind gets too wrapped up in, okay, this isn't working versus what is the very next little thing that I can do instead of looking at all the things that I need to do. Which brings me to the other thing that became an issue is that I had just too many small things building up on my to-do list, some both business and personal. But instead of tackling it, I don't know if any of you can relate to this. Instead of tackling the list, For some crazy reason, I would look at the list and go, "Oh, but there's more things I need to add to it." What? Right? So I either would add things or I would go off and do something completely different that's not on my list at all, and I would go spend time on that. It's called buffering, where I would spend time on things that either not on my list or things that are not critical. And so I found myself doing that quite a bit, which then also led to a bit of overwhelm, which also led to the third thing is not managing my time well, which is kind of wacky, especially when I was traveling. There was a lot of things going on. It was critical that I needed to really hone in and focus my time and my energy and honor the things on my calendar. Now, because I wasn't getting so many things done, what was happening is I was putting so much pressure on the few things that I was doing. So when you're doing less, the weight and the reliance of those things that you are doing become much greater than what they need to be. So that one post or that one call or that one fill in the blank that I was doing, that I was spending so much time on, the weight of that became so heavy that that also got a little bit overwhelming. And rather than failing fast and learning from it, the pressure to get it right the first time was really tough and really high. And I think finally thinking about the end of the quarter, the end of the first half of the year, and thinking about maybe rushing too far ahead into what I'm going to be doing in the second half of this year also started creeping in. So it's been kind of wild. I just feel like there's just been a lot. And then on top of that, just making sure that I'm on top of my own resilience and health and wellness. I recently hired a running coach. So when you do something like that, they of course have their agenda and their schedule for you and the workouts that are laid out for you. And the first couple of weeks was fantastic. And then as things got busier, I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to build some of this in? And if I would miss a workout or miss a day, um, I think I made it a much bigger deal than I needed to. She has me on a 6 day schedule of doing things. If I miss a day, it's not the end of the world. But I was like, oh, I missed that. I've got to make it up somehow. And you can't make up things like that. You have to keep it moving forward. So for me, this is a little bit of a me just checking in and being honest with you guys and sharing this. And I think it's very helpful to talk through these things out loud, just so that I can hear it and come back to, okay, well, what is it that I need to do? And I think the first thing is just that stopping and figuring out what is going on. So I spent the time doing that. And then secondly, taking the opportunity to talk to somebody about it. Whether I needed help from someone or not, or whether I wanted them to help me walk it through. Um, Last week I went to the chiropractor, and this was probably the first time I was really thinking through what was going on with me. So I walked in, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I just was honest with him, and I just said, "Hey, I'm in a bit of a funk." And it's funny because it was a little bit of role reversal. I'm usually the one that's kind of encouraging him, but, it was just good to hear myself say it out loud. And it was good that, to see that, okay, it happens and the world is not falling apart because I'm not exactly where I think I should be. And then the third thing is, for me, is settling down and focusing on the next small thing that I can do. What is the next little thing? Not the whole thing. I don't need to plan out the rest of the year, the rest of the month, even the rest of the week. For me, I needed to come back to, okay, what is it that you can get done today? And don't overestimate what you can get done in a single day. And if you get those one or two things done, celebrate those things. I think sometimes we can overestimate what we are able to do in a day, but underestimate what we're able to do in a month or 3 months or 6 months because that day becomes everything. And that's simply not the case. As long as you're building in the consistency and building the momentum and keeping things moving forward, you're going to get there. And I just needed to remind myself of that and think, okay, What is the next thing that I can do? What is that very next thing? So one is coming back and hanging out with you. And I thought, well, I have some other podcasts that I can drop, but I'm going to just talk about what's going on right now. And so that's what we're going to do. And then from here, I have the next couple of things that I'm going to work on for the rest of today and then tomorrow. And I'm going to do that slowly every day until I can get back to building it up and not getting so overwhelmed from a to-do list or a task list. Some people love checklists. I like them. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with them. I like to see them. And sometimes it feels good to check things off. So I check it off, but then often I immediately have something else to go on them. But they're great for helping me to figure out when I need to get things done. But more importantly, what I do is I will schedule things on my calendar so I can see them on my calendar. Instead of just this big old list of things that I need to do, I will just schedule one or two or sometimes three things on my calendar for that day. That way, I don't have to focus on everything. I can just focus on those one or two things. And that in that case, then I can focus on them and then honor that time. And that is the next big hurdle that I see that clients work through is honoring the time that they set out for themselves to get things done. It's easier when you have a meeting. It's easier when someone pops in. It's easier when you get that unexpected phone call or whatever is happening for you to drop what you were going to do for you to work with or help someone else. But it's imperative that you honor that time, bring those things back and build that momentum so that you can see some of the progress that you want to make for some of your future goals. So I think I just wanted to get that off my chest today. And it was helpful for me, and I hope that it's a little bit helpful for you. If you want to talk through or have questions, drop me a DM on LinkedIn or drop me a question if you're listening to this on Spotify, on the podcast episode, and I can answer it for you. Or if you want to talk about, well, how do I do that more specifically? And it's something that I can help you with, reach out. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and I'll see you the next time.